This Shabbat is more than just a regular, ordinary Shabbat. This Shabbat is special because today, before the sunset, we celebrated day one of Purim. Day one of Purim. Now, according to tradition, uh, since Purim falls during the month of Adar, we have no choice but to be in a good mood. We have no choice but to be happy. Because, of course, we're celebrating the fact that uh, an adversary, an enemy, tried to wipe us out, and yet we were able to use our wits, our intelligence, our courage, in effect, to stand up against those who would oppose us and those who would oppress us. And that sounds like a really good excuse to be in a good mood. All right? What I want to share with you this Shabbat evening is a story very much connected to the holiday of Purim. Now, everyone knows that the Metim, the dead, they gather in the cemetery every single night to offer their prayers. But not everyone knows that the Metim gather every single Purim to celebrate. Now, do you know how I know this? I know this because my great-grandfather told me this. He taught me this. And you know where he learned it? He learned it from an eyewitness. He learned it from a man named Carpel. Carpel. And Carpel witnessed firsthand the dead celebrating Purim. Now you see, Carpel shared this story with my great-grandfather, and my great-grandfather shared this story with me, and now I get to share the story with you. Now, we have to go back in time. We have to go back in time to the little village where Carpel and my great-grandfather grew up. It was a nondescript village in Poland. There really wasn't anything special about it. And there really wasn't anything special about Carpel's house. The only thing that made it different was the fact that he would hang a violin on one of the walls of his bedroom. And he would bring out this violin only one time during the year. One time. He would bring it out to help his fellow villagers celebrate Purim. All right? Now, Purim in this nondescript village was actually a big deal. Everyone would dress up in their finest costumes, and they would parade from house to house to house. And at each house, they would drink a little bit of schnapps, eat some hors d'oeuvres, drink a little wine, drink a little schnapps, have some hors d'oeuvres, drink a little wine. They would sing, and they would dance, and they would dance, and they would sing. And Carpel would go to each house as well. He would walk into each home and he would yell out, "Happy Purim, everyone! Happy Purim! It is so good to see everyone!" And they would yell back, "Carpel! Carpel, we're so happy you're here! We're thrilled! You brought your violin! Play for us, Carpel! Play for us!" Now, Carpel only knew 3 songs. But boy, on Purim would he play these songs. He would play them with so much energy, so much passion, so much enthusiasm. And at times it seemed that Carpel was playing all 3 songs at the same time. At each home, they would thank Carpel for visiting them, and they would give him pieces of cake and cookies, and they would shove it into the coats of the pockets of his suit coat. Carpel would go from house to house to house, playing his violin, drinking some schnapps, eating some hors d'oeuvres, drinking some wine, playing his music, and getting cookies and getting cake. There was one Purim where I think Carpel he may have overindulged, shall we say. He staggered out from one of the homes, and it seemed like everything was just moving in circles, okay? Everything was just moving around. And he was having a hard time maintaining his balance. And he looked at all the homes around him, and it seems that they were all out of balance, and they were all kind of singing and dancing and taking part in the Purim festivities. Finally, Carpel had to sit down, thinking that would make a difference. It really didn't. Finally, he just laid down, thinking that that would make a difference. It seems that Carpal fell asleep. Maybe he passed out. Maybe he fell asleep. I don't know. What I did hear is that what woke him up was a bright light. A bright light. So Carpal got back on his feet and he looked out in the distance and he saw a magnificent palace. It was 3 stories tall. It was 4 stories tall. Maybe it was 5 stories tall. He headed toward that palace. And at the entrance of that palace, he saw people waving him in. And they were calling out his name. They were saying, Carpal, come in, come in. Carpal looked through the windows and they were all lit up by magnificent candles. And he could see through the windows all of the people that were milling about in this grand palace. As Carpal got closer and as he walked into the palace, he realized, wait a minute, I know so many of these people. But that kind of threw him off because the people that he recognized, well, they had died. Maybe they died 5 years ago, maybe 10, maybe 15. But they had all passed away. But there they were. They led him further into the palace. They led him into the grand ballroom. This was a room that I can't even find the words to describe the magnificence of this room. Right? At the end of the ballroom, Carpal saw on a raised podium, he saw 2 thrones side by side, and they were underneath this grand, gorgeous velvet canopy. As he got closer, he realized that sitting on one of the thrones was none other than King Ahasuerus. And on the other throne was none other than his beloved bride, Queen Esther. And standing by Esther's side was Mordecai. King Ahasuerus looked at Carpal right in the eye and said, Carpal, it is so good to see you. And I'm thrilled, I'm overjoyed that you brought your violin. Because we need you. We need you. You have to understand that we want to celebrate Purim. We want to be able to hear music. We want to dance. But there's a problem. The problem is that the dead cannot play musical instruments. So there's no one to provide any music. But here you are. You've arrived. And you brought your violin. And you, Carpal, what makes you unique, what makes you different, is that you are alive. And that means you can play music for us. Can you do that, please? Well, Carpal was kind of taken aback. He'd never been asked to perform in front of a king and a queen, let alone Ahasuerus and Esther. So he kind of made sure his coat was on right. He kind of made sure his hair looked good. He was ready to roll. He lifted up his violin and he began to play. He began to play. And on cue, King Ahasuerus took Esther by the hand and they began to dance. And this gave the cue to everyone else to dance as well. Carpal played his music like he had never played it before. So much spirit and enthusiasm and passion. And he kept playing and playing and playing. He didn't know how long this lasted. He didn't know because no one seemed to get tired. There was no break. There was no rest. But finally, after who knows how long, finally, King Ahasuerus lifted up his hand, giving the cue to everyone to settle down, to stop. The king looked at Carpal and said, "My friend, it seems like you only know 3 songs. Can you play anything else for us?" "Well, Your Majesty, I'm sorry, but those are the only 3 songs I know." Ahasuerus said, "There's one song that I miss the most. It's my favorite song, and I've not been able to dance to this song, well, since I passed away. I want my court musician to teach you this song. So that way you'll be able to play it for me and for Esther and for all of us. At that point, the court musician came forward. He was an imposing man, very tall, dressed all in black, handlebar mustache, very imposing. He looked at Carpel and he just opened his mouth. But Carpel realized, I'm looking at this man with an open mouth, but he didn't hear any music. He didn't hear anything. But then it dawned on him, he felt it. He felt the music. And then he picked up his violin, and not only did he feel the music, but he was able to play the music that he felt. As he began to play this song, a song that he had never heard before, oh my goodness, Ahasuerus and Esther, they were overjoyed, and they began dancing once again. And the throng of people, they began to dance as well. And this went on and on and on and on because Carpel kept playing this new song over and over and over again. After who knows how long, once again, Ahasuerus lifted up his hand, giving the cue for everyone to stop. He said to all of his invited guests, I'm looking out the window and I see that dawn is coming. Dawn is coming. And sadly, everyone, that means that this Purim celebration is coming to a conclusion. That being said, we need to give a reward to Carpel. He has provided us with such good music. And of course, he played for me and Esther our favorite song. On cue, the court treasurer came forward. He was a very portly man, and he held in each hand a sack. It looked like a heavy, heavy sack. Ahasuerus came forward and he dug his hand into one of the sacks and brought out just a handful of gold pieces, gold coins. And he did the same with the other sack, another big handful of gold coins. And he began to stuff those coins into Carpel's suit pockets. Wherever there was a pocket, he was stuffing in gold coins. It got so heavy that Carpel was wondering, how can I even move? I'm weighed down by all this gold. But then on cue, all the people were gone. The palace was gone. And Carpel just found himself standing in the middle of the street. He wondered what just happened. Was it real? Did it actually take place? And then he thought, wait a minute, gold. He gave me a lot of gold, and he put his hands in all of his pockets, but he didn't find any gold. The only thing he found were pieces of cake and cookies from the celebration, the Purim celebration. And Carpel wondered, did this really happen? Did it take place? But after just a few seconds, Carpel could hear that melody in his head, the melody of the song that the court musician taught him. And he lifted up his violin and he softly began to play that new song. And at that point, Carpel knew something indeed had happened. Jumping ahead to the next year, to the next Purim celebration, when Carpel went from house to house, not only did he play 3 pieces of music, but he played the 4th piece. He played the piece of music that the court musician of Ahasuerus and Esther taught him. The people wanted to know, Carpel, where did you learn this incredible song? It's amazing. You've never played this before. How did you get to learn that? Carpel never gave a straight answer. He usually just kind of nodded, winked, or really said nothing. After a number of years, Carpel confided in my great-grandfather the story of how he learned that 4th piece of music. And at first, my great-grandfather was a little skeptical. He was like, come on, it couldn't have really happened. I mean, what if it happened, what happened with all the gold? What about the gold? Well, Carpel said, I've been thinking about that a lot. You know, it's a long-standing Purim tradition to make fun of each other, to spoof, to pull pranks. maybe Ahasuerus just played a prank on me. Maybe that was just a way of having Purim fun. But let me ask you a question. How do you explain the song? I got the song. Ahasuerus' court musician taught me that song, that same song that I play for everyone every single year. Well, my great-grandfather really didn't have an answer to that. He began to believe that, well, it seems that Carpel really did get together with the dead and really did celebrate Purim and really did bring back that magnificent piece of music. And as I bring my words to a conclusion after having told you the tale, who am I to disagree with my great-grandfather? I mean, after all, he was the smartest man I ever met. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful remainder of the month of Adar, our joyous month. And even though in most communities there's only one day of celebration of Purim, we can still carry forward the joy and the happiness of celebration, the celebrating Purim, at least throughout the remainder of Shabbat. Okay, so Chag Sameach Purim.